right, welcome back. Season 9. We are so excited to be with you guys, and we are going to start off, as we always do, with a review from one of you. We're actually going to be able to use some of your guys' comments from Spotify, which is a cool resource that we can use. So this is by Trapaccio, and this is on the episode that Brad actually shared his story, episode 80. If you guys don't know our full story, I'd encourage you guys to go back and listen to that. This is before we were on YouTube, so you will have to go and actually listen if you are following us on YouTube. This said, his side of the story is so unbelievably relatable to mine, from work and marriage to downfall to recovery and God moving in a miraculous way. Your podcast is helping my marriage.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate it. For those of you that have not left a review yet, please go and do so. We would love to hear your feedback, your input, your story. It really does impact us as well and encourages us, but it also helps other people to find us, which is great.
Yeah, it is.
And if you are just listening, I will say, on Spotify, or if you're just listening on Apple, come and subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to get the YouTube thing going.
I know.
Bear with us. We are far from experts at this, but we're definitely trying to get this and improve it and improve all of our lighting and all of that good stuff. But we would like your help in getting that launched.
Yeah.
So come and subscribe and come watch us, and you will get a up front and close experience to see Brad's eyebrow raises when he, strokes his beard in contemplative ways. Like, you're missing out. If
What
you're just
about
listening.
when you don't make a face? You just sit there like dead face while
That's
I'm
what
talking.
we're going to call it, dead face.
I don't know what to call it.
Wow.
But it's like emotionless.
Or my dead face.
Emotionless.
Which is apparently a face that I have.
No emotion.
Just dead face.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Okay, so I'm just going to sit back and listen to you today.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have no input. I'm gonna dead face you the entire time. Just
First of all, I know if you're on YouTube, you're gonna see my fancy red slippers.
I did not realize that you were wearing those until right now at this very second.
You're so observant.
And okay. I'm sorry, I've been running around turning on various cameras. I didn't notice that you were going to have the red slipper game going on today.
Yeah. One of my parents got me this a year ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just thought it was.
Last week was socks and Crocs. This week is socks and slippers.
Not last week. It was a couple episodes ago.
Oh, okay.
What? Just having you track what's going on.
A few episodes, we had an episode specifically on manipulation. And so now throughout... Since the last couple weeks, I just feel
it's like so heightened.
Now we're just
it's so heightened now. I'm like, are you manipulating me right now? It's always running through my head.
It's always.
I'm like, she's manipulating me right now.
You're so ridiculous.
And I'm okay with it.
Please do tell when it's running through your head. I would like to hear it. How did she make me put these Christmas lights up already? Saboteur. Anyways, no, you had the opportunity to speak at a men's event at our church here recently, and we were kind of discussing it. We usually try to go out like once a week and kind of discuss both, just our week and connect, but also actually discuss topics for episodes.
Yeah.
And so this is one that kind of came up, and usually they do come up kind of organically. Like, our intention is to go out and kind of discuss it, but usually the topics evolve from just a conversation that we're having. And we had a discussion, I think, because our manipulation episode that we started talking about men, and then you said you don't like gooey men.
Yeah.
Which
I did.
Brad quote, I was just like, gooey. And he's like, yeah, I don't like gooey men.
It's hard to explain what I mean. It's just something about, like, I'm trying to think like the best way to put it, like a gooey guy. It's not like dirty. He's just like
dirty? No one's thinking dirty when you say gooey.
No?
No.
Well, I don't know.
Just like Not a dirty man.
No,
like, I mean, isn't it just another word for like soft man? Like,
yeah, but I don't necessarily mean physical.
Yeah, no, I know.
Like it's a whole package of goop. Like that's what I look at it as. And it annoys me to no end. It really does. Like, and I think that's why it's like I was getting fired up at brunch, wasn't I?
Yes.
The other day.
I just don't like gooey men. I'm not sure how to explain it. Yeah. Doesn't mean that they are acting like a macho man. It just means that they're gooey. They don't step up. They don't do the thing.
They're not acting macho.
Yeah. You're saying, yeah, it's not that they have to act. That's not what your definition of manhood is that you have, that you're acting macho.
No, I don't like, and I know the whole like alpha and beta guys or whatever. That annoys me too. And I know, I'm sure that's like
our podcast is about just a list of Brad's annoyances.
I'm sure, I'm sure it's a science-based thing, for sure. Right. But it just annoys me because I think it's just over the top now. Like, it's like, what's your definition of an alpha man? It's, thinking of, whatever comes to your mind, right? Like super rich, like, walking around,
large and in charge kind of thing.
Yeah. Just, I don't know. It just bothers me.
Yeah.
All those labels, they really do bother me.
Yeah.
But I guess if I had to like define gooey, I guess that would be like what you would think a beta guy is. I don't know.
Well, now someone's wondering, well, what's a beta guy? Like,
yeah. So here's what it really comes down to. It's a man, a biological man, right? So like, cause you're going
to get into this too?
Well, no, because, well, I mean, yeah, no, it's, I say that because like, if you're just born a male and you grow up to an adult, you're a man.
Yeah, right.
But that's not what manhood is.
Right.
And so that's why I'm saying, like,
there's a lot of, you defined it as there's a lot of grown boys out there.
There's majority of grown boys. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Just little kids running around that are 30 years old or whatever. That's 40, really, 50. That's really what it comes down to. Right. And that's kind of what I was going with like the gooiness.
How many times can we say gooey on today's podcast?
It does bother me though. It really does, because you have, we were talking about specific, events, whatever, where a man isn't doing what he's supposed to do. Right. Right. He's like, and yes, there are roles. Mm-hmm. So don't sit there, why not? Don't sit there, feminist, and be like, what do you mean? What's going on?
Hand motion?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, there are roles. Like, men are supposed to do certain things.
Right.
And
society benefits when men do certain things.
Yes, absolutely. And so, like, I don't have to, I'm blessed with a career. Right. And so, we don't have to worry about, like, we budget, we do all those things, but we don't have to, like, we're not stressing, like, is our mortgage going to be paid? Is our bills going to be paid? Right. And not everyone's like that. There's men, my definition of men out there that don't have that. Yeah. Right. And they're struggling to provide. Yeah. They're trying. Right. Mm-hmm. And they're struggling to provide. I'm not talking about guys like that at all. But this one subject comes in my mind because, talking and trying to understand why a man with a career, with, steady income, with all that wouldn't be providing for his family like he should be, and that's just monetarily, but I think that's just like a tip of the icebergs, right? If it's monetarily, what else are you not providing? Security, right. A loving home, right. Leadership, it's like goes down the list, right? That's just something you could see physically immediately. And then, but there's a lot deeper.
Yeah. And I think like even in that definition of like alpha male that culture provides, it's men who have a bunch of people following them because they're just like, do this, do that, do this. And they give this air where, your definition is always coming from like the servant leadership side of like dying to self. And that is a lot of what manhood should be.
Yeah. The greatest leader ever on to step foot on earth was Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. He wasn't walking around like this, quote unquote alpha male, right?
Yeah.
But he was the epitome of what a man should be. Mm-hmm. And he lived his life like that. Like, that's what you should do. You should work. You should do these things. You should lead your household well. You should be a servant. Like, be humble, right? This is God in the flesh walking the earth, and he was humble and a servant. Says he came to serve, right?
So something that we've seen a lot in coaching or, in different areas of life is there are a lot of men now that feel like they want to lead their homes. They're trying to, model what that looks like and struggling, right? But do you feel like there's just in general a huge gap now of people who feel like they never were modeled what manhood looks like, and they're feeling that gap?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the gap's going to get wider and wider and wider because you have grown kids. Yeah, raising kids. That are raising kids, right? And that gap is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is crazy. And I don't know, when that gap started. We weren't even going to talk about this. No, but I was going to, as a segue into what you're talking about. So like, let's say someone's listening to this and they feel that gap very like, what do you do? Yeah. What do you do in that place? Like, you're sitting there going, okay, I do want this. I understand. And we'll always point, first thing you need to do is go to the Bible. Yeah. Because the attributes that you're looking for are there. And we always talk about eventually, like, you can look back and see there's a reason why I am the way I am, but eventually there's ownership to saying, but I need to be who I'm called to be, right? And that's a big deal. But can you give some, idea of how you could basically step towards what biblical manhood looks like when you're feeling that gap so profusely? Yeah. That's me handing I know, right? You just the segue. It would be better if I handed you segues and you didn't look at me. Just took off. Yes, and you just went with it. Instead of making, first of all, you give me a look that say you're segueing. That's like bringing in all my Minnesota and accents. Makeup words and the whole bit. It's bringing it all. You look at me like one eyebrow raised up, like, I see what you're doing here, Lisa. Like, I'm like, okay, yes, I am. I'm trying to help you transition into the topic that you have. And then also, if you just went with it, like, it would go just like fluidly. But instead, I have to say, yes, that's what I was doing. And then now now it's created an awkwardness. And now I feel like I have to fill it. And just keep going. I can't help it. No, you were saying earlier, I got to speak at a men's event at our church, which I was super stoked about. Even though, like, I get nervous. No, I'll take that back. So one good friend of mine, he's a human performance, like, director, right? Like, this dude it's legit. And he told me, he's like, you don't get nervous. And I was like, yes, I do get nervous. Like, you're not in my... Tell me. Yeah. How can you tell me how I'm feeling? And he's like, no. And he goes, then he started asking me questions about what I do for a living. And he was like, are you nervous when you're 30 seconds out? Are you nervous when you're doing this? Are you nervous? And I was like, no, I'm excited. Like, and he's like, okay, think of that feeling. And he's like, now, are you nervous about going to speak? And I was like, you're right. Like, I'm excited, right? Of course, there are nerves, but that real feeling. And then what he, and this is a little, side conversation, but what I thought was so great, and this is something you guys can take away from this today too, is nervous is the negative and excited is the positive. It's the same feeling. Side of that emotion. It's the same feeling. Interesting. Right? That same feeling, and nervous is the negative side. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. So, no, I'm not nervous. I'm never nervous. I'm always just excited. Yeah, super excited. Give me caffeine. Yeah. No. So anyway, I was asked to do this event. Well, no. So let me back up. We have a men's breakfast at church, and I love it. I've never had that honestly, in my adult life, I don't think I've ever had a church that had these, even though that sounds crazy because you always hear of men's breakfast things, right? Yeah. But I never had that. And so I was like, no, I'm going to this. And as soon as we started going to the church we're going to, I started going to these men's breakfasts. What's
interesting too is like the boys immediately wanted to go.
Oh, no, it was no question either. It wasn't even like, can we go?
Yeah,
it was like, men's breakfast is this weekend.
Like our 13-year-old's like, so
men's breakfast is this weekend, right?
But it was interesting.
But that's great.
The reason why I bring it up is you even felt a little bit of that tension in the beginning of like,
because I wanted like my
I want
thing.
this space of like, okay, but then recognizing like biblical manhood like raises up men, right? And so what better way for your boys to be able to see that?
And so, going through a year almost of these men's breakfasts, the topic this year was leadership. And so anyway, our pastor asked me, he's like, hey, can you take, one of the weeks, right? And luckily, this was like in September that he asked me, so I was supposed to do October, and October was ridiculously busy for me. And then, but I went to pray right away as soon as you started asking me, and I got this topic, the main point I wanted to get across. God gave it to me, right, for this men's breakfast. And then didn't write, because you do need to write. So I didn't write anything. I just kind of jotted some notes down. I was stressing out because, again, work was crazy busy, and then work led up, and then I got to go on basically my yearly missions trip with Casas por Cristo, which is an amazing, we've talked about them before on our podcast, and this year I got to take our youngest. So I went right from busy work to that.
Yeah, literally days. Like it was like, I'm off work for the first time in like packed, 5 weeks.
And then go, right? And amazing time. And that's kind of where, the topic that God put on my heart then. And then I go to this event, Casas por Cristo house build, and we're down there, and it's like the same core group of dudes, but now everyone's bringing their youngest. Really, I think it's almost everybody's youngest that brought kids. And I was sitting there taking a break, and then I'm looking at all these men build and the kids helping and all these things going on, and it just hit me again. Like that topic was kind of like pushed to the forefront of my mind. I still didn't write. Like, I'm not going to say like that night I went and I was like pulled out, my whatever.
Download.
And just started writing. But it was like, again, like a fresh thing. And so the October men's breakfast got removed. It was just so busy. Not because of me.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, he's unavailable, let's cancel it. No. It was just busy time for everybody. Like church had a lot of events going on. It was real busy. And so the church decided to do a men's giving, right? Because it's November. Let's do a big, thing. It was moved to a night, an evening event.
Side note on that.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I think that we don't typically, like for the last several years, we don't do turkey on Thanksgiving is by the time Thanksgiving comes around, you've had turkey like 5 times. I
haven't had turkey yet. Just saying.
You did? Yes, you did.
When?
For the youth Friendsgiving.
I didn't eat turkey.
You didn't eat any turkey. That was the only meat available. I can guarantee you did.
I did that. I did.
I have not had turkey.
Well, no, but our men's event was not turkey.
Yes, you had brisket, which obviously shout out Desert Oak.
Yeah, our friends, they made brisket, and it was an amazing night. But anyway, so then, it became this evening, which was so cool. It was lots of dudes showed up, and so I got to speak at that. And that topic that was weighing on my heart, I had time to write it out. I didn't get up there and like freelance it by no means. But it fit what we're talking about today clearly, and it fit the missions trip, and it fit the gap of the gap we're talking about, like the gooey man gap, right? That's what we call it.
That's the
I know. We're working on a title.
Gooey Man Gap. That's going to be the title of this episode.
I don't know if YouTube will let that be the title. I don't know. It just came out. This is why you write when you go to speak at events. Yeah. So we can't have things like that going. Oh gosh. But anyway, the whole, like I said, all these breakfasts were based off leadership, right? Biblical leadership and how to lead your family well. And it's been great. But there's been like some phenomenal dudes that have gotten up and speak, to speak. And, I know I'm in a leadership role, like outside of home too, but it's like, kind of like how I always joke, like you pray in the King James Version, I pray in the Message version of the Bible. It kind of feels like that, right? But I was like, no, God gave me this topic, and so we're going to roll with it. And what it was, the bottom line is the men, and you can add women, right? You can interchange this based on who you are. Okay, it works. The men you surround yourself with, my goodness.
Retake.
Yeah, retake. Clip 2. No, the men you decide to stand beside will shape the man you are inside.
Yeah. And
that was the bottom line takeaway from this whole thing. And it's hit me with work. It's hit me with life, with you guys, with all those things. Like the boys, they're choosing to stand by other boys, right? They're boys right now. They really are. I mean, I know as 18, you're supposed to be an adult, but they're still boys.
Think of yourself when you were 18.
Yeah. I wasn't doing what my 18-year-old was doing. He's a little further along than me. But
that also reflects what you're talking about.
Yeah. But they, for that, when they were like, we want to go to the men's breakfast, and I'm like, I want like my own thing. Well, but I never told them no. Clearly, it was just, and I didn't even tell them that.
Yeah,
like that was the last thing I wanted to say.
Because our youngest would then be like, well, I'll never
fine,
go.
I'm never going. Like that's it. He's so much like you.
We don't like to be an inconvenience.
Yeah, but so I was just voiced that to you.
Yeah,
and then just kind of like swallowed it. You know, like whatever.
Right.
And I'm so glad I did, because it's cool, because you go to these men's events we have, and there's a table of youth. Which is
so cool.
It's so cool. It really is. Like it's just the neatest thing.
You and I have talked about this. It's like a lot of people are like, oh yes, the youth, that's our next generation. It's so important. We need to invest in them.
And then they never do anything.
Try to find somebody who can help with youth.
Yeah. No.
Because it's like people talk the talk. But
and they don't know how to interact. Yeah. Like the youth, I just treat them like I would treat my homies. Like I don't.
The fact that you just said homies right now.
I use that language. I'm sorry. Like that's.
I don't have gooey men around me. But I have homies.
Yeah. But what I really got to is like, this is a gap of leadership that nobody thinks about. Generally speaking, right? I'm not going to say nobody thinks about who they surround themselves with.
Don't get mad at us, guys.
Yeah. But I think that this is a crucial part of leadership that is overlooked, that is neglected, that is nonchalantly taken care of, right?
Not invested in.
Yeah, you just randomly are surrounded. Because if this is new to you, look around who you're surrounded with. Did you pick them, or did they just kind of happen?
Yeah.
Right. And I think both are fine, but then you have to figure out if it's fine to keep.
Yeah, that's
right.
True.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because God puts people in your life.
Absolutely.
And so, but at a certain point, you got to figure out, is this just a happenstance connection that I need to keep at arm's length? Or is this something that, like I said in my talk, there's men in my life I've given the authority to speak into my life. Mm-hmm. Anyone can come up to me and speak into my life, but if I haven't given the authority to do it, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Right? Like I don't take it. Basically, that's what it is. Like I don't take it. Right? So anybody,
because they don't know your life or your character or your investment.
It's nothing against that person.
Right.
But they're not my people. Mm-hmm. Right? So they can do whatever they want to do. right?
Yeah.
I can't stop someone from telling me.
And if it's something relative, obviously you'll pay attention to it, but it's just not where you allow
to
it.
a certain level.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying is like, first of all, I'm not arrogant or, anything like that. So I accept critical things from whomever. But if it really needs to speak into my life, that's different. Right. And so that's kind of what I'm saying is like the men you choose to stand beside will shape the person you are inside, will shape the man you are inside. Like that holds true. If I go into what I do for a living, all right, we operate in usually in 6-man fire teams. Mm-hmm. And, we've all been through selection course. I've talked about that before. And then to get where I am specifically, we all get selected to do that as well. And so then you're with these group of guys and you basically live with them, right? Mm-hmm. Day in, day out, you're training, you're doing missions, you're traveling, all these things you're doing with them, to include like off, outside of work stuff, right? So you're home and they invite you guys over for, a party or get together in the backyard, whatever it is, birthday party for the kids, whatever, right? But you're kind of always around each other. And those guys I choose to stand beside, no doubt, right? Right? So in the work world, like I want to stand beside those dudes. But as I did that when I was green, right? When I was like coming up in that world, I allowed them to shape who I was inside on all levels. Mm. And so that's what, Lisa talked about episode 80, go to episode 8. That's what happened, really, right? Like my sole focus was over here and surrounding myself with these men solely and my priority wasn't correct, And so I was doing all these things over here. Well, then that was shaping me inside to make the choices I made, to do the things I wanted to do, all those things. Mm-hmm. Like those dudes shaped me. They didn't tell me to do those things.
Right.
Right. And I'm not saying those guys are bad.
Right.
Right. There's, I think the more I've matured, I've seen more maturity in personal lives going on. Right. And we were all kind of young back then too, and stupid, even though we weren't that young. Right. But it's just, I didn't view everything like I should have viewed. And so I allowed them to shape my life. Right. And then it ended up destroying our marriage. Not almost, right? It just didn't happen in a divorce, mm-hmm. right? But it ended up destroying our marriage, ended up sending me off the deep end, like wanting nothing to do with God, wanting all these, nothing out of all these things. And then, I don't want to get into my testimony, but then, God meets me and I start to, this new path, right? Back down. Or not back down, but this brand new path, and leaving everything behind. And then as I'm doing that, I'm learning who I need to have around me, right? Is it who or whom? I'm never good at that. I'm horrible at that.
It's also with this and then. I literally struggle with that.
This and then?
This and then.
No, you mean then and then.
That is what I mean.
Okay.
Look, if you guys aren't on YouTube, you can miss Brad's mansplain face, which I've also seen frequently.
I confuse this and then. Okay. That would be weird. I think I would have corrected you a couple times.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
But anyway, no, it's just, it's so crucial, that aspect of it. And that's what I was learning. I was like, if I, first and foremost, right, Jesus, mm-hmm. right, first and foremost. And then who am I going to surround myself with? What do I want in my life?
Who influences you?
Who do I want to influence? Who do I want to have authority to speak into my life, right? To really speak into my life,
right?
To challenge me, to correct me if I need correcting, to guide me, all those things. And then who can I do that for, right? And so that's when I really was like, this is the part I'm missing. And if I want to go from A to B in growth, then this is the part that I need to do.
Yeah.
And I think I love this example. in the Bible, my favorite, I always want to say my favorite Bible character, and I know that's not wrong.
Favorite person?
But it makes it sound fictional.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean? And I hate that.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's absolutely not fictional. But my favorite, like, dude,
biography.
Yeah, my favorite dude from the Bible, minus Jesus. Okay. Like, and I said this during my talk, you know, like the Sunday school answer to everything is Jesus, which of course.
Yeah.
Like absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, but my favorite non-Jesus person in the Bible, right? Could you say it like that?
I don't know if that works, but I'll let you have it.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
My favorite non-Jesus person in the Bible is one of the greatest leaders that's I guess ever existed, right? You know, but one of the greatest leaders, one of the best tacticians, one of the guys in the Bible, and it was David.
Yeah.
And I love the story of David, and I love every part of it, right? And of course, like he falls, and it's, you know, tragic.
But that's even kind of part of it.
But even with that, you know, God's like, this is a man after my own heart.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
like
what that's why I think, you know, the Bible is true, is just that there's so many people that say their worst aspects. They put it out there, and it gives you hope for our own brokenness.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, we look at David and shepherd, right? Young boy, young shepherd, fighting, you know, lions and bears, killing them, right? To protect his flock. Like that's, like, I can't imagine, like, our youngest.
Did you say lions, tigers, and bears?
No, I didn't say tigers. You just put
that
that in your head.
That went in my head because I was like, lions, tigers, and bears. So my.
I mean, maybe he fought a tiger. I don't know, but it doesn't say that.
It does.
Okay, so I mean, it could have happened, but that was just something you threw in there.
Yes, because that phrase is going into my head as soon as you said it.
Oh my, yeah, I knew that. So, but I can't imagine our youngest like having to defend and kill a bear or a lion. You know, like I can't imagine that, right? But that's what he did, you know. And then through this, you know, he you know, I don't know, it's not the next time we see him, but then you see him taking food like lunch to his brothers that are fighting in a battle. And the, you know, the battle in this valley against the Philistines, and we all know, you know, it's probably one of the most famous stories ever, right? You know, the David and Goliath. You know, there's all those analogies, even secular analogies to David and Goliath, right? But this is that, right? He didn't go to battle. He went there to bring food to his, because he wasn't old enough.
Yeah.
Right? So he went there to bring food to his brothers, and he sees all
who were the warriors.
Yeah, who were, you know, the warriors, right? And they were all there, and they're cowering in front of a giant. Mm-hmm. And the giant's like mocking God, mocking Israel, you know, just doing all these things. And David is offended. Mm-hmm. And rightfully so. He's like, what's going on? You know, it doesn't get into it, but I can't imagine like what his look would be on his face.
What's your deal?
Looking at all these men.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting there and no one's acting.
Yeah.
And he's just like disgusted.
Which, side note, for any young man that for some reason you might be listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, rise up. You know, like even if you see men around you that are not doing the things they're supposed to be doing, it's like David recognized his authority was coming from God and his power was coming from God.
Yeah. This wasn't his own, but he's seeing this take place, and he calls it for what it is. He's like, who is this that's mocking my God? That's mocking, like, you're not.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I understand we're at war, but what are you what are you doing? And then, you know, fast forward, right? They try to give him armor. He's like, no, this is too heavy. He's like, I'll go do it, right? With God, right? You know, and the
same God who helped me defeat.
And it's, the same God who helped me defeat the predators going after my sheep, you know, all these things. So he had his priority right, all these things, and he steps into that valley by himself. You know, and like smokes Goliath, then goes over there, takes his own sword, chops his head off. And then I just imagine him like picking up the head and just like like raising it above everything. And like, this is what God did, and then, of course that rallies everyone. Yeah. Right. And then, Israel wins. It's such an amazing story, but I'm sitting there doing that. And then that's like that fast track of David. Well, I don't know if it's a fast track, but it kind of launches them. Right. And I know he was already picked, anointed, but it kind of just, it continues this path for David, and then he becomes king. And then we see that David's wise, right? In multiple scriptures, like he wasn't the wisest man. No. That was Solomon. But we could see that David's wise. And one of the things that hit me was that he had, he's a great warrior, but he surrounded himself with the correct men. Like he did. And he probably had, more people that spoke into, because he's a king, right? So he probably had all these other, advisors and all this stuff. But what I was getting at was there's a war going on right now for our souls. There's, look around you, not necessarily like physical war, but look around you. People don't know what gender they are. People like screaming and yelling for no reason because, someone parked in a parking spot. Like, there's weird things going on, right? Like really weird things, like people losing their minds over dumb things, people getting offended, probably for what I just said, for sure. Right? Like there's all this stuff going on. There's churches pandering to this stuff, like there's churches that are pushing the pride agenda, then it's not biblical. Yeah. Like this is not right. There's churches doing so many things. There's men sitting back doing nothing, and David with his warriors, right? He had a mass army, but out of that army, he had 37, or the Bible calls them the 30. He had 37. I guess 37 didn't sound like, wasn't as catchy. Right? But if you look at it, it is 37 dudes, but he had 30. They call him the 30. And out of those 30, those are like his special forces guys. And out of his 30, he had 3 that were like the best of the best, right? Probably, they did more feats than the other guys, right? And they were the mighty of the mighty. The mighty of the mighty. They were heroes. Like, and to hear some of the stuff they did is ridiculous. It's like legend. Right? It really is. It's like, it's crazy, like killing 800 men with a spear. One guy standing in a field when everyone else ran off and he's like, I guess I'm going to have to do this, and he finishes killing everyone and he can't even drop his swords because his hands are like frozen. It says the Bible is frozen to his sword, which I don't interpret as like physically frozen. What it is like his forearms are so tight, like everything, like it's cramped up, like he can't like open his hands because he's just been sitting there like slaying, right? It's just ridiculous. And then there was 2 other guys that are mentioned. They're held in higher regard than the 30, but not as high as the 3, right? And even those guys. So I'm confused though.
Aren't they still part of the 30?
Everyone's still part of the 30.
Then why 37?
I don't know what you mean.
You said 37.
There's like the Bible says, and when I was doing the study on this, it says the 30, right? And then the 3, right? Like the 3.
Oh, so not out of the 30. There's an addition.
No, out of the 30. Then there's the 3. But if you read about the 30, there's the 3. There's these 2 guys I'm talking about. Then there's eventually 37 people.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know if they just didn't like,
Got you.
37, the 37. That sounds weird. We're just going to say it there. I don't know. Like, I have no idea. Maybe
someone can tell us.
Someone does know. Maybe someone does know. But when I was doing the study, I didn't see anything about it. Yeah. They just said, oh, by the way, there's actually 37.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah. But there was these other 2 out of the 30. Like, everyone's out of the 37. Okay. We're tracking.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's this many apples, right? No, everyone's out of the 37. And out of those,
mansplaining. Yet again.
And out of those, there was the 3, right? The highest 3. Yep. And then there was 2 more guys that they talk about. And, like Benaiah is like the coolest, one of the coolest dudes too. Like he, like two scriptures on this dude.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, but, and all these guys, there's only like a couple scriptures on all these guys, right? But like 2 on this is like, he chases a lion on a snowy day, right? So like
a lion in a pit on a snowy day.
Yeah, but he chased the lion into the pit. Like, and that's what hit me too. It wasn't the other way around.
Yeah,
it wasn't like the lion
fell in there
like was chasing him and he ended up in a pit and he's like, okay, I got to kill it. No, he like, I'm going to kill you.
Me.
Chased him to a pit and then killed him. Like, these are like warriors, right? Not scared to do whatever it takes.
Side note, also shows how important it is, like, who you follow, because I'm sure these men gained great courage by the fact that their leader had faced a giant.
It's back and forth, right? It's a mutual. When you surround yourself with the correct men or women, it's mutual.
Yeah,
it's not one-sided by any means. It should be mutual. If it's one-sided, that's a mentor. That's not someone that you get surrounded with, right?
Right.
If you're if you have a friendship and it's man and men to men, right? And you're mentoring, like it's one-sided for you, right? Yeah. It's like you get nothing back. You're mentoring that person.
Yeah.
And we can go into like you do get something back and all that. Yes, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not who's going to shape you, right? That's not who's going to help you necessarily, right? That's a mentor. And we're talking about like, I want this circle. But these guys weren't afraid to step in by themselves. But they knew what's better than alone, right? Is to have someone next to you. And that's what I'm getting at. It's like, in my life, I have men that I can text them and they'll go to their knees in prayer for me. They'll stand beside me. And that means the world to me. And I'll stand beside them, right? With whatever it is. They could speak into my life. They could correct me, whatever they need to do. But we're there for each other because we want one thing, right? We want to, live like Christ wants us to live. We want to advance his kingdom. We want to one day end up with him, right? Yeah. And so we want the same thing. We want to lead our families well. We want to bring up the next generation the correct way. We want to build warriors. Yeah. And I don't mean just physically. Maybe it does end up being physically. That's fine. But I'm talking about the very real spiritual side of what's going on. Yeah. And we want to bring those warriors up. And I have men that I can call on and they can call on me. And they're not going to sit there on the sideline. They're in it with me, even to where they have to pick me up and hand me the sword. It's like, okay, let's do this, right? It's this brotherhood that you need to have, or would you say sisterhood?
Yeah.
That you need to have, or sister. I don't know. You never really hear that. I don't.
I was going to say, that's pretty common.
I don't hear that.
I don't hear that at all. There's never a phrase I hear. Well, I can see why.
But you have to have these people in your life. If you don't, you're going at this alone. Even with God, like God has made us relational.
Absolutely.
Right? Go back to Genesis, right? Adam's there, living his life.
Paradise.
Walking with God. Like not like how we walk with God. No, he's like physically walking with him, talking, naming animals, doing whatever he wants. Like it's, crazy.
Paradise.
Right? Yeah, it's paradise. And God's like, it's not good for you to be alone. Yeah. And makes woman, right? And I kind of joked about this during my talk, but it was like, thank goodness on so many levels he made a woman, right? Because I looked at all the guys, I was like, not only would we not be here like biologically, right? Like how do we reproduce? But also like just, we do like dumb things that could get us killed all the time. And a lot of things like woman kind of stops that,
Woman.
But you can see it back then. So yes, like, and that's, marriage and all this stuff. But then also you go to, Paul, and Paul says, well, maybe it's not good for you to be married, and that's okay. But he doesn't tell you to go isolate yourself and don't talk to anyone,
right?
And don't do these things. No, he's just saying maybe marriage isn't right for you, and that's okay. That's all he's saying. He's not telling you disregard everyone in your life and be
isolate,
alone.
Because that's the enemy's tactic.
Yeah, and so we're not made for that. We're made to walk this earth with other people. And if you're trying to do it alone, you're missing it. You're missing out. Which
you and I have talked about this before. I think you can see so much the desire for community is that people, no matter whether you believe in Christ, whether you have a faith community, build community around something.
Yeah.
Right? Like with archery, I was always fascinated by, you find these pockets of people who are just like, this is like everything I'm interested in, right? Someone who's into golf, like they're into golf, and you find people who are going to go golfing with you, right? Like it's just, no matter what, if you have an interest, a fascination, gamers, like what do? You get online and then game with other people. So it's not even like that is an isolating thing anymore. You know,
it's like everybody,
you find people with common interests.
You crave relation.
It. Yeah.
Right. And so like, yes, we're married. Yes, you speak into my life. Yes, you pray for me. You support me. You do all those things, but you're not meant to be what I'm talking about with other men, as I'm not meant to be what I'm talking about with your friends. Yeah. Right? Like your close friends.
Your sisterhood.
Your sisterhood.
No, but it's very true. And I think that was a big thing in our relationship when we realized that not only are we not meant to be enough for each other when it comes to like the element of faith, right? Like we are not meant to be all to each other. Like we would always fall short for one another. But then the other element of knowing like we need other people, like I need other women in my life and you need men in your life. And that's so healthy. Yeah. And it helps us to grow in areas that we could not help each other grow in. Like I'm not a man and you're not a woman. So there's just certain things that we're not going to help each other with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just like want to ask all of you guys who are listening, like, one, are you doing this life alone? You know, who are your friends? Right. And that's a big, you know, that wasn't my bottom line during my talk, but that's a huge point, right? Because, you know, you have the old saying, you know, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And I changed it up for this, which is, it still has the same meaning, but I changed it up because I wanted to kind of really hit home, was show me your friends, I'll show you who you are. Right. And then I used, you know, what I do for work. Right. And you laugh about this all the time. We all have kind of the same walk. We all kind of look alike. You know, we all.
Yeah, you got a team picture and I'm like, zooming up super close. Like, who's who?
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you have dudes with shaved heads, beards, no beards, whatever it is. There's like something about them that you could tell.
Makes them identifiable.
Right. Yeah. And it's weird. But also, that's who you surround yourself with, right? Just like you said with the golfing or the archery. You know, everyone kind of in those worlds, they all kind of like act alike. And that's why I'm saying like this is so true.
Yeah, you can look at it in any area.
Careful. And you do have to be selective. And you do have to pick. Like if you're thinking about it right now, like who are my circle of friends? Right. That I allow to speak into my life and vice versa. And you might be like, oh, well, my neighbor, you know, that dude I see at church, you know, and it's like, I challenged all the guys at our church with this. I really did. Cause I'm like, if you run into a guy in the lobby at church on Sunday mornings and you're, you know, surface level, conversation, you're not standing by that man. You're not. Like, that's not your battle buddy. That's not your dude, right? That's an acquaintance. And maybe you call him a friend and that's fine, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? Or if you see the guy once a month at a men's breakfast or whenever there's a men's event and you see that guy.
That's a cool person.
Yeah. And you might have conversation, come up, say hi to him, but is it ever really leave that? Like, that's not your guy. Right. And vice versa, you know? So it's like, who are you choosing to stand beside? And think about it, like really lock it in, because as a follower of Christ, you're not allowed to be ill prepared. You're not allowed to be David's brothers. You're not allowed to do those things. You're not allowed to. If you are, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're not, even if you think you're on the sideline, you're not.
Yeah.
You're just standing there waiting to get God. Like, that's exactly what you're doing. You're standing there just waiting with no one else around, just waiting. And that's not good. Right? Like,
you become irrelevant there.
Yeah. And your faith is going to get shaken. And who knows where you're going to stand after that? Like, when the battle comes, it's not if, right? When it comes, when you get trials, when you have troubles, when you lose your job, when you can't have kids, when you have a miscarriage, when you have, like, all those things, right? When you find out your spouse is cheating on you, when you found out your friend betrayed you, like, all those things.
Life doesn't go the way you planned.
Yeah. When your kid doesn't live the way that you've brought them up, when all those things happen, who are you turning to? Yes, we're going to our knees in prayer. Absolutely. 100%. But also, there's guys I reach out to. Like, hey, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can face the giant. I don't know if I can. I need you. Right. And it's like, the whole, I don't know if you've ever seen it. I think you showed me videos on this where it shows, like, what the woman says and then it translates, so the guy understands it.
Like when you send your husband, like, a list, like, could you get some eggs at the store? And then they're like, sure. Yeah, no problem. Go to the store and come home with no eggs.
First of all, it wasn't just eggs on the list.
Exactly.
And there was a space.
Like, I didn't see eggs on the list. It was the first thing on the list.
But there was a space between that and all the rest of the list. So I just, like, concentrated on the bottom of the list.
Focus, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. I don't even remember what I was saying. I don't.
Sorry. Well, I was going to say you were talking and from the very beginning, and I know I'm weird with the, like, rhyming thing because I can't help it in my head, but I'm thinking as you evaluate, like, your friendships, it's like, is this a drain or is there a gain? Yeah. Right. And you really have to start looking at it in that way. Like, both, not only in the friendships that you have, but in your friendships as to who you are. Right? Yeah. Like, are you the drain? Yeah. Or are they draining you? Like, you have to start evaluating those things. There has to be this level of gain, right? Not in a selfish way. You need to be the gain too, right? Yeah. Where it's like, that these people are in the battle with you. You know that these people are going in the direction, that eternal mindset. And the other thing that I was going to say is you going to your battle buddies, you saying, like, I don't have the strength for this right now, right? It's vulnerability that leads to genuine friendship that way, right? Yeah. Genuine battle buddies. So the artificial conversations in the lobby at church, not that they're bad.
They're not bad.
But you actually getting a chance to know someone or to be known means that you have to open up about aspects of your life that are not comfortable. And it means saying, like, you're going to have access to the vulnerable side of me, my weaknesses. Yeah. Right. If that's a better way to put it for the men listening, because vulnerability sounds scary, but it's like, okay, yeah, I have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses, and I need you to be able to build me up in that area or support me in that area, vice versa. Like, I don't know. That's a big deal that if you only ever put on the best version of yourself, you will never have accountability relationships or battle buddies that will actually be effective.
No, it's true. It's very true. So I like how you said the uncomfortableness, because there's nothing, this isn't a comfortable realm to be in. No. Right? If you look at it in that world of like David's mighty men, right? And these feats that they've accomplished, and they had accomplished by themselves. And none of those were comfortable situations. They were literally life and death situations, right? And who knows how many life and death situations they faced with David, and with the other guys. Like, it doesn't get into that, right? I would love to know more about all that stuff. It would be just so cool to listen to it. And that was kind of my point, was like, if I could have lunch with anyone or a feast
other than Jesus,
with anyone other than Jesus, like, I'd want to sit down with David. I want to like talk to him, pick his brain. Like, I want to hear, and I don't even know what necessarily questions I'd ask, but it was just this, he had to have thought those guys out. And even picking 30 guys, so
for sure.
And I'm not even saying like, oh, you need 1 or 2 men in your life. You need 6 men. You need 30 guys. You need what? I don't know the number.
Yeah.
It could be 1 guy. I'm not sure what that number is for you. I just know that if you're not doing this and you want to be the leader that God's called you to be, you want to be the better husband, you want to be a better father, you want to be a better friend, you want to be a better person in the community, like all those things, you have to do this.
Yeah.
You have to do it. It's imperative. It's crucial. And if you're missing it, you're always going to miss something. And then going back to what we talked about at the beginning, like this gap, right? Mm-hmm. These grown men, kids, the gooey men, if you weren't brought up that way, right? So like, I volunteer in our youth. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea, like, even you talk about this, that was the furthest thing from my mind.
Yeah.
Not that the youth don't matter to me. The youth matter a lot to me, even before I volunteered with them, mm-hmm. right? I'm a dad, right? Like, this is a huge thing. But I never was like, oh, I'm going to volunteer for youth. And we were asked to do 1 or 2 things. We were literally asked, hey, would you guys lead a marriage small group? Which, I mean, what do you think the answer would be, right? Like, mm-hmm. This is literally what we do for not a living, for a ministry, right? This is, we speak into marriages. Or could you help us in youth? And it was like, oh, we're going to help in youth,
Yeah, which I was shocked by, not because I didn't want to help with the youth but because I didn't think that it was going to be something that you were going to be so on board with. And you were like, I feel like that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it is incredible to see, like, we feel honored now.
Absolutely.
To be a part of their lives, to get
But I love, whether you like it or not, you're an example, right? And they look to you. You're not their dad.
Yeah.
Right. Some of these kids, maybe you are a father figure because maybe they don't have a dad. Right. But overall, like, you're not their parent, but they look to you for certain things. And so that's the closing of that gap.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, hey, what does he do? Mm-hmm. Right. Like or as you mentor youth, they start seeing like, oh, I could take that from him. I could take that from him. Mm-hmm. I can learn that from him, that from him, and kind of gather, wisdom, right? Instead of just one source, like my dad, just one source. No, it's like I could gather more wisdom.
Or we get to affirm what parents are doing,
or affirming what parents are doing. Yeah. Or they hear it, mm-hmm. right? Like, a great example. You know how it is, like kids, you could tell them something 100 times and then someone random like says something. They're like, did you hear what he said? That was amazing. Like, I got to do that. And it's like,
75 times I've said that.
Been telling you this. I mean, so a great example of this is my son. So I was like putting a story up on Instagram, and then I see, like, not a suggestion, I just like see a reel, mm-hmm. right? And it's a cool song. And I'm like, and it starts off with like, you never knew Christian music could be like this, right? And I'm like, I listen to tons of Christian music, but I start listening to,
I'm gonna listen to this just to prove you wrong.
So I'm listening to it, and I was like, I like this. I like it. I don't even know. I can't explain, like, the genre, or it kind of reminds me of, like, I don't know. Anyway, guitars, heavy guitar and all this stuff, but it was super cool. I was like, I really like this song. And so I show my youngest, right? And he's like, oh yeah, I know that song. Or no, because my phone was updating. So I go to his phone, I look up the artist, and I'm like, yeah, here's this dude I just found. And he has the song I listened to, he has it favorited already. And I was like, oh, you already have it favored? He's like, yeah. He's like, I've played this song so many times in the car while you're driving. So many times. And I'm like, no, you haven't. And he's like, And he just gives me this look.
Like a parent to a kid. Like, how many times?
He's like, I've literally played this song. And so I'm like, I've never heard it. You know? And then I get in the car with you and I'm like, you got to check out this song. And I push play and you're like, Crew plays this song all the time. And I'm like, wow. You know, so like I was the little kid in that, right? Like I wasn't ready to hear it till, I found it. But
I will say really quick, what you said there, I think is so important, that talking about that gap is like, if you can be a gap closer, do it.
Yeah.
Like if you see that there is a gap and you can help close the gap in some capacity in your life or in someone else's life, close the gap. Like, I just think that's so important.
No, it is. But yeah.
So challenge for the week
is that look around. Like, who are you doing life alone? Not that you're married or single, but are you doing life alone, or are you surrounding yourself, being selective on who you allow to shape you?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what it comes down to. We're not strong enough to shape other. Let me put this the right way. If I surround myself with a group and I think, I'm going to be strong enough to shape everyone else and they won't affect me, you've already lost.
So true.
Like you can't do that.
Yeah, if you think I'm the best person in, quote unquote, in this group, I'll just influence everyone in a good way. Not
even the best person, but it's like, okay, say, let's put it like I'm the man that I am who I am right now. And I start surrounding myself with guys that aren't like that.
Going in that direction.
Yeah. Going in that direction. And I invest, right? And they're investing in me. I might rub off a little bit on them, but overall,
they will also rub off on you.
Absolutely. And so they will shape the person I am. Like it will happen at whatever, some level, right? I'm not strong enough to do that to, multiple people, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't do that. If you think you're going to do that, it's not going to work out like you are thinking.
Yeah.
That's why you need men in step, going the same direction as you, speaking the same language as you. It's kind of like I go into like what I do for a living. We all kind of speak the same language. Yeah. We're all in step with what we want to do. We all train. We all like prepare, like all those things. We're preparing for one thing. And we all are gathered to do that one thing. That's what you need.
Absolutely.
You need those guys that are the same way. And it's not surprising if you ask for prayer or if they ask for prayer. And if they say, I am praying, it's not, I am praying and then, I forgot, let me pray for him. Like I know these guys.
Yeah, they will pray for you.
If they say I'm praying and they hit send, it's literally, I'm praying right now.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't tell me everything, but right now I'm praying. Like, do you have those people in your life?
Such a big deal. Also, I do think we're going to take a slight break for the Christmas holiday.
That's why I got my red slips on. Look at those.
Because, we want to make sure that we also get a chance to focus in on the things that really matter.
Yeah.
The Advent season too, of just recognizing what Jesus has done for us by coming to earth. It's pretty amazing, and we don't ever want to take that for granted. But we will be back in the new year. We're hoping that we have like so many new reviews by the time we come back in the new year.
Right.
Hello. But Merry Christmas to all of you guys. We're so thankful yet again for each and every one of you. Take time to write that review. Take time to subscribe on YouTube. That would be a little Christmas gift for Brad and I for sure to get us launched. We really appreciate each and every one of you. We will see you next year.